Hey, Blue Rockers, Connie Willis here. How are we looking there? We doing okay this time? Welcome to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. This is Earth's Most Interesting Conversations. That includes people, places, and things, and even some little critters tonight. There's some little bugs flying all over the place. Did you see that one? Now, I have my trusty hairspray to get some of them. Oh, I just nailed that one. You guys, it's going to be bad, but I've got half of them already, so sorry you're going to have to deal with that, but even sorrier that I'm going to deal with that. So those of you that are new here to Blue Rock Talk, it is Earth's Most Interesting Conversations, and you are now officially a Blue Rocker. That means someone in the know. This is our handshake right here, or just a hello kind of thing. It's, you know, it's a backwards, sideways Spock, live long and prosper kind of thing. It's nothing gangster. We're not into that. It's no cult. It's just kind of a fun thing. I thank you for being here. It is a big night for us tonight. We've got some neat things going on. Rocket Scientist takes on Flat Earth. That's what's going to be happening tonight live, taking your Q&A as well. I want to remind you that Bigfoot Friday tomorrow night may or may not happen. We'll see. I am just about over my flu. I know I look pretty good, don't I? Don't I look pretty good being sick here? It's I'm mustering up my energy for the night, but I want to make sure everything is good for Coast to Coast on Saturday night. I hope you will join me. We're going to have tattooed rocks, and we're going to talk about the Titanic. Is that really the Titanic that they pulled up, or was that some other ship known as the Olympic? So that will be on Saturday night with Coast to Coast. I'll be your guest host for that night. We are still working on Wasted Wednesday because I believe that people are really interested in that. You guys are sending me a lot of really neat things. And a reminder, too, that you can find Blue Rock Talk on DTube, Steam It, DLive when I can make that happen. These are all uncensored, decentralized blockchain, on the blockchain apps, dApps as they call that. Yeah. I know the lingo here. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreaker, Periscope. And, Spreaker is coming, so go over there and at least hit follow so you'll be ready when it happens. If you'd like, I'd like for you to. And I'm hearing that there's this big thing that Facebook's going to start charging. If somebody knows anything about that, you can pop in and say what you want to say about that. But I think that's just one of those things going around. Also, I can't forget that, of course we have Crypto Connie Tuesday here. And then we also have Stan's Bible lecture on Sundays. That's 1 p.m. Eastern. Everything's live. We do live break-ins. We do a lot of cool stuff. And we can chat about almost anything that's interesting. So let me catch you up on what's going on here for tonight. This is Signature Thursday, Far Out Thursday. This is where it's kind of miscellaneous. We can do all sorts of things because this was opening night on Blue Rock Talk. So what transpired was Stan Larimer, the Godfather of BitShares, who also does Stan's Bible class on Sundays at 1 p.m., who is patiently waiting for us right now. He was doing his Bible class last week, and he takes question and answers, or he takes your questions and then he answers them. So somebody that was on, and you can go back and check it out, was asking about flat earth questions. And Stan allows you to ask anything except about the crypto world. He doesn't want to know anything about he doesn't want to talk about the crypto world during that time. So somebody was asking about flat earth. And it wasn't just flat earth out of the blue. They were actually talking about it and referring to it with a Bible verse. So that was great. Fit in perfectly. However, it kind of went a little long, and Stan was like, wait, let's hold off on this until another day. So Crypto Connie Tuesday came along, and Stan was on the air, and he did a little bit of talk about it. And he knew that Crypto Connie Tuesday was Crypto Connie Tuesday, and it was Tuesday. So he said, we need to do this on your Far Out Thursday, Signature Thursday. We got to do it on the right night. So guess what? We get to see Stan again. For those of you that are bummed out about it, I am sorry. But for the rest of you, as you know, he is a good friend here to Blue Rock Talk. And so we welcome him back to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, and on Signature Thursday, Far Out Thursday, Far Out Stan. There you go. Woo! How are you, Stan?
Hey there, Killer Connie. I have never seen such a despicable display of mass insecticide in my life as what I just saw you do with that spray can. I was appalled.
I know, and around all my MacBook Pro, my MacBook Air, my Yeti, everything over here, my hard drives. But you know what? There's a bazillion of them over here. I don't know what to do. I might as well be around a campfire. And you said to stay away from the computers, right?
Yeah, if you just spray your Yeti mic a little bit with that, it'll tone you down a little bit.
They're hanging on to the light, and I'm hairspraying them right into the light. You're going into the light, man. They're awful. It's like they're being born right in front of me. So forgive me, people that are out there, but this is not cool at all. At one point, I know I'm going to eat one, and we already had a show like that, and it was terrible. I was drinking sweet cream bourbon, I think it was called, and it's a really nice drink, especially on the rocks or chilled, and it's just a sweet little sipper drink, like after dinner kind of drink, where it's just chocolatey. What is it? There was another drink like that. I guess people kind of a White Russian kind of thing, maybe, or close to that.
Well, if you get one of those football mouth guards, it'll keep the bugs out of your mouth.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. There was a fly. It was much bigger than these, and it was a fly, and I drank it, and it was there, and it was horrible. And we have considered this a no-fly zone. All right. So speaking of which, so tonight is a big night. Stan, you have decided you are going to take on this flat Earth thing. So we're going to, I set up everything correctly, right? That you can vouch for me. That's what happened, right? How this all started.
Yeah.
Okay. So, now at one point, everybody, you can ask questions and comments. Please put all those in caps when you do it. And let Stan do what he needs to do. Do you just want to kind of do your thing first and then get the questions, or you want me to interrupt you in the middle and go, no, Stan? No, you better do it.
Yeah, I have prepared some slides to talk about it, and so I'm happy to go through that. But if you see something pop up on your screen that just won't wait, we can take interruptions at any time.
Okay, but you know what? There is a minute delay, so we won't do that. We'll let you finish your thing.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so everybody, that's what's going to happen. Let him tell his story. I'm going to be squashing bugs like crazy. Connie ate the fly. Mary remembers the night that Connie ate the fly. It was awful. I licked a fly. It was not cool. It wasn't what you would expect. Did you ever think about that one? So that's what we'll do. And now everybody, this is all kind of on the fly. I'm going to put up slides for him. I'm going to kind of play around as we go here. It's been a crazy day. We had somebody get really hurt badly on a motorcycle accident right in front of our house and to the left. And so anyway, it's been kind of a crazy day. But we're going to pull it all together here, and just bear with us as we go along and bring up the slides. Or bear with me. Stan's all set. Stan's ready to go. He's been ready for days. So, then we'll take your questions afterwards. And I hope that my flat earthers are here that have been wanting this for a while. And while you are here, please, everybody, hit that like button. Go ahead, hit that like button while you're here. Before we get started, please hit that like button, because right now you like it so far. So here we go. Let's bring up the slides. Let me pull these in for you, little Stanley. Stanley, are you Stanley?
That's what I am when I'm in trouble.
Okay, then I won't call you that. Let's see. Okay, let me. Now you're going to tell me. I'm just going to put you on. Okay, it's going to be you, and you just tell me when you want the next slide. But I'm going to.
Okay. Well, before this, we go to the slides. You can leave one up there if you like it. But I guess what sort of the title of this was going to be is a rocket scientist looks at flat Earth theory. So tonight is not a Sunday school teacher looks at flat Earth theory. We did a lot of that last Sunday. So I only have one slide that sort of ties in to anything biblical. This is going to be a scientific type discussion. Not that there's any difference, okay? My belief is that the Bible's the Word of God, and it's not going to contradict what we can observe with science. And when we find, I noticed a lot of the questions that came up on Sunday were all Bible-based. Well, the Bible says this. That sounds like the earth is flat. The Bible can't be wrong, so therefore the earth has to be flat. Anytime we find that there is a contradiction between two verses in the Bible or between the Bible and science, it means we don't understand the whole thing well enough. That said, there are supernatural things that do happen in the Bible, and in such a way that, for the purpose of the discussion, I will admit that we could be living inside a simulation, because God has the same kind of control over this universe as I have control over my video game simulations. I can pause them, I can rewind them, I can cause new characters to pop in out of nowhere, I can suspend the laws of physics. And if you want to go there, it's entirely possible that inside this universe that God has such total control of, he could play any game he wants with us. And therefore, we really could be living in some strange alternate universes, and there's nothing to stop him from doing that. However, my belief is that God doesn't do that very often because he wants us to discover stuff. He wants us to be able to do scientific tests and learn about the universe and grow in technology and grow in knowledge. And if he's always fiddling with the dials, so to speak, behind the scenes, then we can't do that. So I'm going to start out with the assumption that most of the time the universe obeys the laws of physics. And so with that, that means that we can detect whenever something, or we can test our theories. In fact, I had a physics PhD guy once tell me that the watchword phrase in physics is to predict is to observe. So what we try to do in science is to say, well, if I understand the world correctly, then this ought to happen when I do this. And then you arrange an experiment and you do it and you say, it didn't quite work out the way I thought it did. And so there you say, well, what would it be causing this difference? And suddenly you learn a little bit more about your model of the world, and you keep doing that. And, that's gone on through life. Isaac Newton thought that, the laws of physics were simple until Einstein came along and said, well, yeah, but at the speed of light, it gets a little bit hairy. And, Stephen Hawking's come along and did even more of that kind of stuff. And some of the latest physical experiments are actually showing pretty good evidence that the universe is a simulation. Maybe I'll talk about that some other time. But what I want to do tonight is simply show you the kind of things I taught my cadets at the Air Force Academy. And so my basic job out there was to teach sophomore and senior cadets rocket science. We didn't call it rocket science. It was orbital mechanics and ICBM trajectories and stuff like that, guidance and control. But it's basically all the things that you'd fit in there. And so I had quite a few examples. Now, remember, I did this back in the early 80s, back when the computer I had was a TRS-80 Model 1, and all my work was on a mainframe, and anything I had in the way of slides had to be drawn on a piece of plastic and put on an overhead projector. So I'm not going to show you the same things I used to teach those Air Force cadets, but I remember what I taught them, and so I've gone to the trouble of making a few modern slides that I can show you some of those things. And the reason I want to show you them tonight is to show you some of the reasons why I believe the world is clearly a sphere, and close enough to a sphere anyway. It's round, not flat, and I'll tell you some of the reasons I believe that. And the main reason is that if it wasn't, then most of the stuff I taught those cadets how to do wouldn't work. Now, you might be surprised, but the military establishment in most countries, and certainly in the United States, doesn't like you teaching their future officers stuff that doesn't work. Okay, so that's what I've done, is taught them a whole lot of different things that they would need in their future jobs. And I'm going to show you some of that stuff. This won't be that technical. It's just little examples that I used to help make the class more interesting. And I'm going to share that with you tonight. One of the things I will tie into something that I mentioned back on Sunday when they were quoting all kinds of Bible verses at me that proved the earth was flat, I mentioned the fact that in the book of Job, which is probably the oldest book predating Moses in the Bible, and I was just fascinated when I was reading along in the ESV or the NRSV editions. It's a little bit different in different translations. But these just jumped out at me as I read them. I thought, that's incredible. So I want to share that with you before we duck into the other things, because it kind of makes a point I want to have recurring in the science part of this. One other thing that I should mention before I get going was I did have the chance to design a Mars rover. And so I worked for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at Martin Marietta in Denver. And there we were studying how to get around on Mars, how to do autonomous navigation, and having to deal with the time delays of the fact that it could be 40 minutes for your signal to get to and from the rover on the ground. And therefore, we needed a lot of automation. And part of that automation is to know where to point your antenna so that you can talk to the Earth. And we certainly know that one of the Viking landers, which was not mobile, but it was a very early lander on Mars, that mission ended when somebody typed in a command that told the vehicle to point the antenna someplace else. And of course, once you point it away from the Earth, there's no way to send it a command saying point it back. So all those people lost their jobs that day. And that was the first want to get away moment for the person who sent that signal up there. So anyhow, that's some of my background. That's what I know about and what I want to share with you tonight. But let's look at this couple verses from the Bible first, and I'll tell you why I'm going to tie that into the science part. It says about God, He stretches out the north over the void and hangs the earth on nothing. So the Bible does not say that the earth is sitting on any type of a support. It doesn't say that it's turtles all the way down. It says He hangs the earth on nothing. That sounds pretty scientifically correct. Another place in the same book of Job 26, it says something utterly amazing. He has inscribed a circle on the face of the waters at the boundary between light and darkness. Now, most people, when they read that, don't even think of things. But I have seen the picture I'm showing you right now of the earth. And that little shadow that separates daylight from darkness is what we rocket scientists and astronomers refer to as the terminator. It's the place where, in general, when you're looking at heavenly bodies, they seem to disappear into darkness. And if there is anything that is an observation that a human can make from the ground that can allow them to see for themselves that something is spherical, it is looking up in the sky and seeing the moon wax and wane. And if you got a telescope, watching other planets wax and wane. And if you happen to be sitting in space looking at the Earth, watching it wax and wane, especially those famous pictures from the moon. Now, I understand, and by the way, I don't pay much attention to this, so I'm a neophyte in terms of what the arguments are here. But as I understand it, one common theory is that all pictures taken from space are simulations. They're photoshopped. Well, I can't help you if you believe that out of all the pictures that have been sent back and released by NASA and everything. If you believe those are all faked, then we're at an impasse. So, with a couple exceptions, I'm not going to try to show you photographic proof. I'm going to show you physics proof that the Earth is actually rotating. So anyhow, see what it says right here. He has inscribed a circle on the face of the waters. You see that terminator there. The only way you can get a circle between light and darkness is if you wrap that circle around a sphere. And as you can see right here, we do have a circle on the face of the waters. And the only other circle between light and darkness that I could ever imagine would be the shadow from a solar eclipse, where you might see a dark shadow going across. That would be a circle on the face of the waters. But looking at this, I thought, how in the world did anybody in Job's day know this unless he was either shown it in a vision or told it explicitly? So anyhow, that's my biblical single slide for the night. and it was my chance to tell you about Terminators. You look at various pictures, and all the pictures I have of things in space, you're going to see that same thing pointing out that things are spheres because of the way they wax and wane due to sunlight shining on a sphere. That tells you that it is a sphere. Okay, Connie, that's enough on that. Let's get into it. So the next slide that I've got here, as I manipulate my own slide because I can't see what's being shown, is the space station. And everything that you see there is dramatically shown against a curved Earth in the background. And you can watch from that space station. All the people have been on that space station. It's tooling around. It takes something like 110 minutes or so for it to go around the Earth once. And so it's screaming along, and the Earth is scrolling along below you, and you can see that you make it the whole way around the world. But since that could be Hollywood magic, we won't go there. I'll just point out that the people that designed that particular station, as you look at it right there, had to make thousands of design decisions that were based upon the fact that this thing was going to be going around, and it needed to be oriented so that those solar panels are kept pointed at the sun as the station moves. The mere fact that it can stay up there instead of falling down towards the Earth without any propulsion. It's not sitting there burning rockets. There's no force keeping it up other than its ability to move fast enough to clear the horizon before it's falling towards the center, bends it around into a circular orbit. And that means that there are on this planet, the engineers that built that whole station, every one of them had to be aware of all kinds of different factors that are true about what's happening out in space, including the fact that it's a hard vacuum and nothing is moving supersonically in the sense you think of it. It's actually, since the speed of sound in a vacuum is zero, then even an ant is supersonic in space, if that's what you want to say. But there's none of the supersonic forces that we might associate with the sound barrier or things called transonic effects. Out in space, there's nothing tearing at you, and you can move as fast as you want and not experience wind. Of course, there is a little bit of solar wind coming off the sun and things we might think of as wind, but not the kind of stuff that would cause us to say it can't be moving because you'd be moving too fast. The Earth is moving too fast. That whole atmosphere is sucked tight against the Earth's surface by gravity, pulling it towards the center and holding it down. And the further up you get, the thinner the atmosphere gets, and you can experience that by climbing up a mountain and so on. So just wanted to say that if you're a conspiracy theorist and think this is being hidden, then you've got to hide it from all the people that built that space station who had to take that into account in all of their engineering decisions. Okay, Connie. Of course, we do have that famous picture from the moon that I'm not allowed to use because it's obviously fake, right? I was there at the time. I watched those transmissions back before we had the ability to do photoshopping that was coming in flickering, staticky imagery, and we were awestruck by it when that happened back in the late 60s and early 70s. And that picture shows clearly a Terminator, which gives us the insight that it is a sphere. And since they were on the moon for several days and took several of those pictures, you can actually see the Earth has rotated from point to point in those different pictures. But once again, I'm not going to try to prove anything to you from that because obviously time travelers went back in time and brought photoshopping equipment back when the only thing we had, the whole computer on board the Apollo 11 was less powerful than your cell phone by a lot. Okay, so it would be pretty hard to fake that back then. Today, with Star Wars movie capabilities, of course, we can fake anything. But back then, you could not. So I was a guy that was living back at that time, and I don't think they could have faked it then. Of course, what do I know? All right, let's look at the next one, and I'm going to start now getting down into what are the different things ordinary people experience every day that would lead them to believe that, or give them evidence outside of the range of any conceivable conspiracy theory or attempt to make us believe something that's not true. There are tens of thousands of aircraft flights that are happening every day all over the world, and every single one of those aircraft is flying a great circle route. Great circle routes are the shortest, most fuel efficient, and least time consuming path between any 2 points on a globe. And if the world was not a globe, the route every one of those airplanes takes would be a different route. I'm just showing you an example right here where someone was describing the fact that you can't get from Los Angeles to Delhi, India, but if you start out in Seattle, you can. And so every single route that's flown every day, since fuel is expensive and people want to get places on time, and you want to get your route done as fast as possible so you can turn that plane around with a new set of passengers and keep it earning money for you. So there are sound financial reasons why people want to fly the shortest distance between 2 points, and the routes they actually fly are great circles. So let's go, Connie, to the next slide where I can just define, in case you don't know what a great circle is. A great circle is just any circle that you get when you split the Earth exactly in half. If you pass a plane through the center of the Earth, where it intersects the surface of the Earth is a great circle. And it's along that. You can pass it through any different angle, as you can see on my charts here. If it goes through the center of the Earth, it's going to define a circle, and that is the shortest path to get on. So all the software in every aircraft's autorouter system is going to be planning the direction that you're going to fly to get someplace based upon calculations inside it that are assuming that the Earth is spherical. Okay, if we go and just look at it projected on a map, Connie, on the next slide, you'll see two different routes, and you've probably experienced this if you've ever flown from across the Pacific, for example. It looks really strange on a flat map. It looks like you're going way out of the way, and yet that's the shortest distance. The only exception to that is sometimes due to prevailing winds, they may deviate off of that because it may be that the most fuel-efficient way to go is not necessarily the shortest distance. If you can catch a ride on the jet stream, like you see on the bottom line, you may deviate from it. But if all things are equal, they're going to take a route that looks like it's going way out of the way on a flat map, but it's actually a straight line. If you stretch the string between 2 points, 2 cities on a globe, that string will stretch tight to show you the great circle route along there. So there's an example. You would have to deceive every airline that's in it to make a profit, and every pilot that plots his or her flight on any given day, tens of thousands, day in and day out, year in and year out. And they don't do that. The calculations that drive the paths that aircraft take in the sky are due to the knowledge that we have a spherical planet, and no conspiracy is going to stop a airplane company from finding and using that most cost-effective way to fly. If they didn't, they would lose out to other airlines because their costs would go up, and you'd buy tickets somewhere else. Okay, next one there, Connie. Okay. Give you another little experiment that you can do here. When you go outside and stand in a ballpark on pitcher's mound and you throw a pitch and it lands on home plate, what that trajectory of the baseball is an orbit. It doesn't continue because it intersects the Earth, but if you were to take and compress all the mass of the Earth into a little black hole at the middle, and then make that same pitch, the ball would follow a path that would continue past where the ground should be and clear down around the center of the Earth and back up in a perpetual orbit. And the only reason that doesn't go into orbit is because you couldn't throw the ball hard enough to make it go fast enough to achieve orbital velocity, which is about 5 miles per second. So if you can throw a ball about 5 miles per second at the surface of the Earth, and you didn't have to deal with air friction and mountains and stuff getting in the way, you could actually put it into orbit. But whatever you do, you can actually photograph, if you like, measure any scientific way you want, and see that that ball is actually following an elliptical path that, if unobstructed, would orbit down through the inside of the planet. And so there's another test you can do to actually observe a piece of an orbit as you stand on pitcher's mound and throw a baseball. So that would be another little test you could do. And just for Connie's sake, you'll notice that I'm calling this the Blue Rock baseball experiment. Okay, so we move down to the next slide. One of the things I have to teach young Air Force officer is sadly how to target an ICBM. And that's an interesting project in itself. The trajectory of an ICBM is just like the trajectory of that baseball, except it's a bigger baseball and it's mounted on a bigger rocket that has more oomph to throw it farther. And so an intercontinental ballistic missile is essentially putting a warhead into orbit, except the orbit isn't big enough to actually go the whole way around the planet. Some ICBMs, by the way, do have enough oomph to put something in orbit. The Titan II that put the Gemini space capsules in orbit, for example, was just a repurposed ICBM, and it could put the Gemini in orbit and did many times. But in general, its job is to lob a warhead over onto the other side of the planet. So I had to teach cadets how to make the calculations necessary to hit a moving target, because cities are moving targets, or military installations, or whatever you're trying to land your missile on. And when you do that, you have to lead them. Right? You basically have to aim to where they will be one time a flight away. So there are two trajectories you can launch. You can launch on the low trajectory, which is fast, might take 20 minutes to get there, or you can lob it higher and have it come down more precisely on the same spot. It might take 40 minutes to get there. Those two different trajectories have to have two different amounts of lead. One, you have to lead your target by 20 minutes, another by 40 minutes. And so all of those equations, when I showed them how to do it, are equations of motion for orbital mechanics, orbiting around a point representing the mass of the planet, which is what's pulling down on it the whole way along the trajectory to shape it into an ellipse as it takes off and hits the ground. And so those are the kind of calculations we had to do, and I had to teach cadets. And you see some of that in not too long ago. There was a period of time when President Obama decided to cancel a project putting missile defense interceptors in Poland. And the purpose of putting them in Poland was to be able to intercept any Iranian missiles that might be shot at the United States. It turns out that a great circle route from Iran to the closest point in the United States, someplace probably around New York City, takes it right over top of Poland. And so there, the whole strategic reason for putting interceptor missiles in Poland was the knowledge that that is the path that missiles would have to travel in order to reach there. And they wouldn't have put it in Poland if the Earth were flat. There would have been a different direction where they would have based it. So once again, there is real practical decisions being made by governments on this planet, whether they're shooting from Russia at Norfolk Air Force Base, like the one trajectory on this screen, or whether they're shooting from Iran to New York City. We have to take into account specific things that they might do, and it's always assuming that the Earth is a sphere. Okay, Connie, I'm getting some noise right now in my ear. Did something change? Okay. Well, whatever it is, if it's not bothering you guys, I'll press ahead. One of the things that we often saw back when space travel was new and they actually carried it on live TV as a news event, certainly true all through the 60s and even when there was an interesting shuttle mission. Some of you may have seen at Mission Control little ground track traces on there that showed either the shuttle or the space station or other space probes or satellites or whatever. And I never understood it back at the time because when we were going to the moon, I was still in high school. But I always wondered what those traces were that showed it zigzagging back and forth like a sine wave over the Earth as they were showing us where the vehicle was at any given time. Well, that is obviously not something that you would do unless there was something driving you to do that, like the fact that you are orbiting a sphere and projecting that orbit onto a map. So, Connie, if I can have the next slide, which shows what's...
I just got to the last one. Sorry, it didn't flip over. So
okay.
I was showing the one with the sun and the loop, right? And you're on to the next one now.
Yeah, we have some sine waves, which is where the vehicle is. And, of course, next time it comes around, it doesn't retrace the same path because the Earth has rotated about, let's say, if it was at the Earth's surface, it would be 93 minutes. But let's say it might take 110 minutes, depending on how high up you are. If you're up at a distance about 40,000 or 40,000 miles, you're going to be up at synchronous altitude. And that place up there, you're moving so slow that you basically stay stationary. You're orbiting at the same speed as the Earth is turning. But most of the things we see, like how high we can get with a space shuttle or something, is called low Earth orbit. And down there, you're screaming along so fast that you basically move from left to right eastwardly as you orbit. And you go around, but next time you come around, the Earth is turned by an hour and a half or so, and so you basically cover a different spot. And over time, then you cover the whole world as the world turns underneath your orbit. And this picture right here with the two orbits on, I've just showed two. One is the Hubble Space Telescope. It's tipped at 28 degrees. That happens to be the latitude of Cape Canaveral. And when you launch it from there, you're actually forced into having a tipped orbit, and that causes the zigging and zagging. To do any other kind of orbit costs more fuel, but if you just shoot straight out due east, you're starting out at 28 degrees inclination and immediately start heading down towards the equator as you go into that orbit. The other one is the International Space Station, and it's got a bigger inclination so that it can study the Earth. So they spent more energy, if you will, to get that bigger tip so that they could cover more of the Earth for scientific reasons. So I'm going to use that as an example of how I know just from looking at normal things, and you can do this experiment too by taking the prediction of where it will be given to you by NASA and then going outside and looking up at the sky and seeing that, there goes the space station right on schedule. And because you can make those observations and we can make those predictions a long time in the future, we know that the physics that we're describing are true. Okay, so we'll go forward again. And I want to show you some interesting other things. If I go into a perfectly circular orbit that is right around the equator and up at about 10 times the radius of the Earth, and I'm sitting there, I'm going to, at that speed, the orbital velocity is equal to the rotation of the Earth. It takes 24 hours to go around once, and that's the same amount of time it takes the Earth to go around. And so you can stand right over a point on the ground permanently if it's on the equator. Unfortunately, if you tip the inclination of the orbit so that you're starting out at some other place, then while it stays on the average going around the Earth. It does tend to make out this kind of a figure 8 as it goes around the planet, and you get that characteristic shape. That's still a geosynchronous orbit, but because you're tipped, you're going around in a way that inscribes a nice, perfect figure 8 as you go along, as you project the shadow of that orbit onto the spherical shape. So just by looking at where a satellite's ground track is, you can get more evidence that it is actually circulating a globe. And the fact that it stays up there, even though gravity is pulling it towards the ground, straight down at all times, as it moves, it gets pulled into a circular path that we see right here. Okay, and so if we go then to the next, it gets really interesting, because what we rocket scientists do is design orbits to achieve certain purposes. So if I'm living on the equator somewhere, I'm perfectly happy to put the satellite into a nice spherical orbit and put it up at the right height to get the speed to be matching the Earth, and it just sits there. But suppose I'm from Japan, which is pretty far north on the planet. Well, I can't get over Japan that way. And if I put if I tip it so I can pass over Japan, then I spend a lot of my time on the other side, because what goes up must come down. And if I'm passing over Japan part of the time, when I get the other side of the Earth, I have to be in equal latitude below the equator, coming back around as I go. But I can do things like using an elliptical orbit, like I show on the left of this chart. And one of the interesting things about elliptical orbits is that the speed along that orbit changes. It works an awful lot like as you climb to the highest altitude or apogee, you slow way down, just like a roller coaster approaching the top of the highest point. And as it goes over the top, it's moving slow, and then it comes roaring down towards the bottom. At perigee, as it runs the Earth, it's moving at its absolute fastest speed, just like a roller coaster. And then when it whips around and starts climbing up again, it starts slowing down till it gets to the top. And of course, if you throw a ball in the air, you see the same thing. At the top, it slows down to 0 and then starts its way back down, and picking up speed as it comes back to you. What happens when you do that to the ground track is that you can see over on the left, I skew that 8 so that I spend more time at apogee over Japan than I spend at perigee over Australia. And so when I pass over Australia, I'm going very fast, so I'm moving ahead, and I actually move across Australia as I'm gaining on the Earth. And then as I climb higher and slow down, I start lagging, and the Earth turns faster under me, and I lose it. And so on average, I stay over Japan, but in this particular thing here, I spend with that orbit about 1/3 of my time up over Japan, and then I go screaming down across the other stuff, which is, if I'm from a Japanese perspective, is wasted time on the satellite. But if I put 3 satellites up there at different points on that same orbit, I can get one coming over Japan just as the other one is leaving, and the third one is screaming over Australia. And so by designing those kind of orbits so that I can get a satellite or get coverage where I need it to be on the planet, I'm taking into account all those equations of motions and the fact that the Earth is a sphere. And if I put something up into space and gave it all the commands to burn rocket thrusters in order to put it into that perfectly shaped orbit, and we had a flat Earth, guess what? I wouldn't get that effect, and I'd be wasting my time. And yet that's what we do in the space business all the time, is create trajectories that are closed-loop trajectories that give us certain properties and things on the Earth. Connie, if we go forward, just show you what that same orbit looks like if I were to put it on a flat map and set it so that it had a period of 12 hours, so it went around twice while the Earth was turning once. I could have that spend time sitting over both the United States and over China. And in fact, in order to do any of the things we take for granted with satellites, if you live in Canada or Russia, at northern attitudes, you got to use this thing. It's called a Mulnaya orbit, a very elliptical one that spends a lot of time hanging up high in high latitudes. And you only get that if you're doing this. You can't imagine why a particle would move in this weird path if the Earth was flat. There's nothing to make it do that other than knowledge that the Earth's gravity and the speed profile of that particular satellite. Okay, so if we go to the next one, I'd like to just sort of show you that this is big business. What this right here shows very precious, very important real estate in space, which is geosynchronous satellites out there at basically 10 times the Earth's radius. Geosynchronous orbit is a parking place for all kinds of expensive satellites, mostly communication satellites that need to stay positioned over top of everything. Each one of these satellites here costs hundreds of millions of dollars to get up there. And if you were to go outside and if you could see them up there at night looking up at that orbit, they'd be spaced out about every 1 degree the whole way around. There's 400 or 500 of them up there right now, and space to maybe put 100 or 1,200 of them or something like that. And it's just a very crowded ring of satellites around there because those are the ones that stay put over top of where you want. Obviously, all those different companies, communications companies and whatever up there, relay companies, whatever, would not be putting those things up there if they weren't totally aware of what it took in order to do that and the physics involved. And you can't achieve that if you got a flat Earth sitting there and expect any physical property to keep those satellites sitting where they need to be. So big business. Lots of people would have to be in on the conspiracy, and there is no way to do it if the Earth is flat. Okay, so next. Of course, another thing we use every day, you get on your cell phone and you use GPS mode. What that's doing is telling you where you are, and the way that is done is there's a whole constellation of satellites going around up there that know precisely what orbit they're in and where they are down to the tiniest fraction of a second, and they put out time-stamped signals that take a certain amount of time to reach the Earth, and your phone is picking up signals from half a dozen satellites sometimes, and triangulating to figure out where you are on the sphere. Okay, if it was a flat Earth, there'd be nothing to keep those satellites moving like that, and the whole triangulation equations that people are using in order to get you the information you needed to know when to turn at a certain point on the road wouldn't work. So, once again, everybody uses that, and it's a simple evidence that the understanding of how the world works and what its shape is dependent on those physics and mathematics that every one of us use every day. Okay, and then of course when we get into interplanetary type things, in the next slide, Connie, you've probably heard about gravity assist functions. Different space probes have gotten pretty good at using gravity assists. It used to be, called cosmic billiards, where especially the Voyager planetary tours that went by multiple planets and now left the solar system are examples where you came by every one of those planets just right so that the gravity would slingshot you off in the right direction to get more speed to go to the next further planet out. And so we would sometimes, they've gotten so fancy now that you'll swing by the same planet 2 or 3 times, picking up speed every time by. Here's one particular launch that happened in 2004, where after a couple of orbits of the Earth, it was boosted out, flew past Mars, got a little extra oomph, circulated back around past Earth, picked up a little more oomph, and then was thrown on out into deep space. Every one of those things is dependent upon having spherical bodies and gravitational masses that we can take advantage of to do the different tours that we fly around the planet. Okay. And then, here's a really nice one. I'm sorry for those of you who believe this is Photoshopped, but it's just awesome. And so indulge me while I show this picture from the dark side of Saturn, looking back towards the Earth and Moon as a tiny little dot. And so all of that ability to know where to look and what's what is because of our complex and sophisticated modeling of the whole solar system, and knowing where to look and where to point that camera is a very important thing that we have to do. And so those kind of things out there are what allows us to get all those spectacular pictures of knowing precisely where to point the camera at any given time. And if you don't believe those pictures are real, then you're missing out on some awe and wonder of this whole universe. And so maybe you like the fun part about the flat Earth theory, but you're missing out on a lot of other wonder as we go out and explore all of space. Just want to show you one more thing about how that picture was taken and what the orbits looked like for that, because it's pretty amazing. There were actually 2 different times that the spacecraft was doing, and it basically was in a fixed orbit that was designed to swing in either close to the outside of the rings or in between the rings and the planet Saturn. And every time it went around, of course, the gravitational interference or encounters that was going on caused that orbit to precess a little bit, and it never quite followed the same thing. Yet every pass through there gave them a look at new things as different moons were coming by and different rings, and they pointed the camera in different directions as they did. So by just sitting there in that orbit and going around and around and around, they got many pass-throughs of the Saturn ring system and got a chance to look at it from all kinds of different angles. And all of that was due to the precise modeling of exactly how to alter your trajectory with little rocket burns. Very expensive to carry all that fuel out there, so you need to know exactly what you're doing. You're not just flying around and steering all over the place. You're making very precise, tiny little burns in order to get the effects that you want. The other thing, of course, about all this is that by observing those precise motions and predicting what they should be and noticing when they deviate from what you predicted, you can discover new planets or new asteroids or whatever. You say, wait a minute, why did this go off course? It went off course just enough that there must be another planet out there that we didn't know about. And where would that planet have to have been to cause that change? Well, about there. So you point our cameras there, and oh my gosh, there's Neptune or Pluto or whatever other body might have been discovered along the way. And so that is another example where using our models of the universe to make new and better observations is exactly what is proving that our models must be pretty darn correct, because we'd never be able to do the kind of things that we see here if there were some other model for the universe. So I think that might be my last slide, Connie. And now I'm at the mercy of your listeners to go ahead and ask me any question you like. But those are the reasons why I'm convinced that the Earth is round, and that we have seen it from many different angles, and that we have modeled the way the universe works pretty darn well. It's one of the things we do best, is our precise maneuvering of space vehicles. Okay, Connie, over to you.
All right. Well, let's see here. Bam. Oops. Bam. Let me try that again. Let's try that again. Bam. Oh, let's try that again. Bam. There we go. All right. So, Stan, thank you for that presentation. I have been swatting bugs the whole time. I know you've seen that. I'm so sorry. And your slides have been all over the place because there's some sort of buffering on this side, and I apologize. I don't know what to do about that. But just trying to make them big for you like you want it, but I ended up making them small at one point because it just looked better. Okay. But we were getting them all out for you. And I think that the chat was just going so crazy. I don't know if anybody noticed it anyway. So right next to your head right now is a flat Earth little symbol. So those of you that are against him right now, I got flat earth on him. Let me put him on his face. There you go. There you go. I'm just going to mess with you there a little bit there. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's go into the chat and see how that is being seen. I've seen some people going in and out. It looked like I was expecting it to look. And again, I apologize. Just what a crazy sight over here. I think the little bugs that were here that have just been attacking me were sent by flat earthers.
It could be. Yeah.
And it's cool. Listen, I am excited to be able to have both of you guys here, both of the parties here, and then the people in between that are just watching. You're watching Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. I'm Connie Willis, and this is Stan Larimer, the Godfather of BitShares, also who holds Stan's Bible lectures on Sundays here at 1 p.m. Eastern at the college level course. And that's interesting to take questions and do the live Q&A. And here he is tonight with the cap of the rocket scientist that he has. He's got a man of many hats. And now he's talking about flat earth, and that's incredible. I know a lot of people, this is something that you guys wanted to have, and we will probably have somebody right next to him in comparison, just in order to get the questions to him quicker or the answers in the comments quicker, because I think that that's something that you guys would like. So right now, if you do have a comment, which I think you might, please put it in caps. And even though you've already said it in the past, please redo it again so that I can make sure that I see it and get that comment to him. And if you have a question, please put that in all caps as well so I can make sure I get that to him, even if you've already done it, just because you guys are big chatters out there, and I just want to make sure that I don't lose it by going back and scrolling back. That's the worst. All right, so please re-put those questions out. That would be nice. And Stan, I'll try to get them to you the way I did before. If I can still do that, I think I might be able to do it like we do on Sundays. In the meantime, I do have one here that I can look at. So maybe I'll just ask you, Stan. I think it'll be better. It's on Sundays. It's your show. I'm not even supposed to be on. Right? So. Okay.
Oh, you're welcome anytime, Connie.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So let's go. There's just so much buffering here. I think it's great because we've got a lot of people here tonight. But while you are here, please hit that like button and show Stan your support. You guys have been showing some great support with Stan. One of the videos is up to 19,000, and we appreciate that. The only one that's beating it right now is the one with Cliff High. Still trying to get you and Cliff High together. I think you guys are going to actually agree on a lot of things because of your mind. However, I don't think you're going to ever agree on the blockchain, because he believes it has to have a miner before it's a blockchain. Have miners on it, and you say, no, it can still be a blockchain without it. Okay. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. To me, a blockchain is something that's chained together by a cryptographic set of data blocks. And how you do that is there's many ways, and there's smart ways and old-fashioned ways to do it. And using mining is a very old-fashioned way. Only about 1/3 of the blockchain transactions out there now use mining. The other 2/3 use more advanced techniques that don't need mining. Okay.
All right, just to get that out real quick, everybody, because I know there's a lot of Cliff High fans out there. Okay, somebody just Ultimate Hermit. Hi there, Ultimate Hermit. Welcome to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. I'm Connie. How are you? You are now hopefully subscribed, and I hope you like that we are supplying this to you, whatever side you like. I'm in the middle, just supplying the platform. And I see that you say that is not the flat earth model. Everyone knows that is the false PSYOP model. Come on. Okay. We're here to learn. So, and that's what I'm asking for everybody to be very civil. I saw that somebody's comment was that, oh, he's a nice guy, which is you, Stan. And that's great. That's what we want. I don't want a bunch of bullies. If there's bullies, I'm going to take you off, because we're actually here trying to learn, not this. Nobody learns from somebody going, ugh. right? We all know that as a kid, when mom and dad did that, that wasn't good, right? So don't learn like that. Tell us what. So Ultimate Hermit, Ultimate Hermit, that's great. Let me know what the proper, I guess, logo is for you guys, because that is what I was shown when I interviewed Mark. Let's see if he answered me back. What is it? Mark Sargent, I believe. Mark Sargent. I thought that was the one. I've just got a ton of these things, so just let me know. All right. Spirit to, oh my gosh, it's just flying by. Stop! I can't stop. I can't stop it. I'm going to go to the other one because that one's just going crazy. Yes, put it in caps like Pat Konchak has said. That way that I can see it. I appreciate if you guys can do that. All right, so Jimbo keeps saying good night to everybody. Jimbo, I think you've said it a few times. Thank you for joining us. Okay, a spirit to Flanghorn, I guess. All right. Stan, how does water adhere to a spinning ball? And can you show me some repeatable scientific proof, please? Thank you.
Well, there are a number of different forces going on, and the sheer weight of the water, the gravitational force pulling it down. How does the atmosphere hold on? All things are attracted towards the center of the Earth, and while you do have effects caused by the rotation, you have the Coriolis effect that you see that shows up in hurricanes and other ocean currents. And, of course, you have the effect of the moon going by and the gravitational forces that causes the tides. And so all those forces hang in balance. And if we were to spin up the Earth fast enough, then you actually could throw water off. But right now there's enough gravity to win that tug-of-war battle.
Sorry about that. There's a big chat. I like this. Thank you very much, Gim Panda 2012, saying, yes, Flatties, tell her the proper model. That would be great. Just this is for education. Sorry, these little things are all over the place. Holy cow. They're all going flat earth, flat earth. I can hear them. Flat earth, flat earth. Thank you guys. That would be appreciative if you could do that for me. I'd be happy to put it up for you. I don't have a problem with that. I love the argument on both sides. Again, I hate this cliche. I don't have a dog in this fight. I am the platform for you, and I absolutely love this. I had Mark Sargent here on Blue Rock Talk. I also had him also on Coast to Coast. And so I love hearing both sides. Hey, it would be cool I think it would be cool if it was flat earth. I think that would be awesome. But I'm here to learn the truth. So we're getting all sides this way. So thanks if you would pass me on your proper logo. Flat Earth is Nandy Bear. Flat Earth is interesting, and many aspects of the globe and space don't add up. But I don't think this is a good topic for Stan to get into. That's Nandy Bear. What do you think about that, Stan?
Well, I don't think I'm going to make a career out of it. But on the other hand, this was a chance for me to talk about something I haven't talked about since the 80s, and I love it. It's my first love, right? Because I grew up during the Apollo space program and everything that led from President Kennedy saying, let's put a man on the moon this decade. And that inspired me. That caused me to pick my career. And I love teaching other people about it. And so I did all that. And now I've been off doing other things. Sure love coming back and talking about it. And
here you are in Blue Rock Talk. And you are the Godfather of BitShares. And you're doing a whole lot of different things. You wear many hats, and we appreciate that you're here for that. Okay, now remember, I think one of the toughest crowds ever is the flat earth people. I'm not sure why. Maybe you guys can tell me. And maybe it's in all of them, and there's always the real tough ones, Mm-hmm. I don't know, but
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, once you get the idea of being suspicious about what you're being told, then, of course, you get kind of hostile to being told anything that supports that narrative. And so I can certainly understand why once people start being suspicious. I mean, I'm personally suspicious about how our global economics are run, and the people behind the curtain there, and the stories we're being told, and I spend a lot of my time talking about economics of digital currencies and so on, and how the world is not what it seems in terms of how our economies are run. And so, when you start getting suspicious like that, and I think a lot of us in the past decade or so have started to challenge what we've been told, because generally and often we're not told the truth. So if you've, for whatever reason, become suspicious of the stories that are being told, or of the view of the spherical Earth, then of course anything that comes up that seems to reinforce the story you don't believe is of course going to annoy you. So all I tried to do tonight was show you some things that couldn't possibly work unless the Earth was round, and that's my little piece of evidence. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know why anyone would want to deceive us on such a massive scale. But I did start out the conversation by saying, since I believe this entire universe is God's simulation, and he can press reset anytime he wants to, and has actually promised to do that in the not too distant future. So, if it's a simulation, then things could be different from what we think.
I love this Ute person. Ute is hilarious. I love it. Ute is grabbing some popcorn right now, giving us that visual. And that's what I'd ask people to do. Get your popcorn, sit back and relax, join in on the conversation, or not. It's up to you, but listen to both sides and be kind and not bullyish. So this is good. I'm going to try my best to get to these questions, but please redo them. I can't look all the way up. There's a buffering problem. That's the only situation right now. It's not like whizzing up there for me. Ryan Sock, I know that's not flat Earth. Ute again is saying, Jim, you can see it now. I just posted it again. Cheers. Oh, let me find it. Oh, I don't see it. Ryan Sock, how can such a scientific and analytical mind eat the Bible whole cloth?
Well, because I've been blessed with such a mind and been able to look at it in quite a lot of detail, and I find it highly convincing. And I have studied much. In fact, quite frankly, my activities is one of what we call Christian apologetics. That's a fancy word for saying people that explain the Bible and answer questions and help people with their doubts. So I've studied it enough to have been convinced that there actually was a man named Jesus, and he did some incredible things, and we have his eyewitness reports telling us about that. And one of the things they told us is he explicitly said that the Old Testament scriptures, what he called Moses and the prophets, were actually true, and we should believe them. So when you go through all of that stuff and you look at all the evidence, and people have written entire books on that subject, which I have studied, and I am totally convinced that that is actually the true story and account, and that those scriptures that are out there were given to us as revelations from God. So obviously, if you don't do the kind of study of it that I have, and if you have the desire to not believe, that's what you're going to come away with. That book is very thick, and either you want there to be a God who is in charge of this universe, or you don't. And depending on which attitude you go in, you're going to reach the conclusion that you want. So I think that's ultimately the case. And by the way, that's the way God wants it, because this whole experience we're having here is to sort out what we call the sheep from the goats, the people who want God to be in charge and the people who don't. And every bit of ambiguity in that Bible is on purpose, specifically so that you get to make a choice whether you want God in charge of your life or not. And in the end, that will be the thing that determines our eternal fate.
So you, I think, is setting up somebody else, so that's cool. On Earth, movement or work is caused by mass plus mass. But in space, it is mass plus zero, zero being the vacuum. So how can that cause movement?
Well, the only thing that can cause movement is F equals ma. The mass being acted upon by a combination of a lot of different forces causing acceleration in the direction of the net composite set of forces that are on it. So when you're out there in space, you're in a vacuum, so you don't have the drag of the atmosphere unless it's low Earth orbit, which can drag and slow you down and make orbits decay. But if you get up far enough, you don't really have atmospheric drag, but you can have solar wind kind of drag, all the particles that are flowing past you from the sun constantly throwing off solar wind is an effect. And then you've got all the different planets that are tugging and pulling on you from different strengths. You got big planets far away, and you got little asteroids close up, and all of those things add forces together. And when we want to predict the path of a space probe, we actually have to add all those forces up together as we simulate the trajectory that we're trying to achieve, and we work backwards to figure out what delta V we have to put in with a rocket motor. That's another kind of force, in order to get the right acceleration for the mass vehicle we have. And whenever we do that, if we've taken everything into account, we're going to wind up ending up where we want. But of course, usually we don't know what we don't know, so we don't take everything into account, which means we often need a mid-course correction. One more little burn of that rocket to take out whatever errors crept in because of things we didn't model.
You're watching Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Connie Willis here along with Stan Larimer, who you know is the Godfather of BitShares. Also, scientific man, a rocket scientist, and worked on the Mars rover. So he is giving his view of flat Earth, and we are taking your questions now. Thank those of you that are here. Please hit that like button. If you have not yet, I see that there's quite a few of you here. Please hit that like button to show Stan your support of just this happening and to where he could answer your questions for you. That's tough. You guys are a tough crowd. Vinny Strauss-Snyder says, and this is more of a comment, the United States Air Force employed Stan as an instructor. So far, what I have heard from Stan and what I have read on this chat, Stan seems to be the smartest guy in the room so far. And Ute is like hanging out. I like Ute. Blue Rocker. Spirit to a fly. You know what? I think it's Spirit. Oh, Spirit of Longhorn. Of Longthorn. Spirit of Longthorn. All right. Sometimes. Okay. All right. So here it is. Okay. Thanks, Stan. So can you show me how this theory, water sticks to a spinning ball, has been proved using repeatable tests? Thanks.
Yeah. I simply go out and look at the ocean, and it kind of stays stuck to the ground. And you can watch that all day long, and it's working. And so I look at that. Now, I suppose you're going to say, that's not fair. You're trying to prove that we have a spinning ball. And I'm saying, since it's a spinning ball and the water sticks, obviously that works. Okay. I suppose we could design an experiment like that. Let's see, what would we need? We would need to have something to substitute for gravity. So let's say we use an electromagnet inside a sphere, and let's say we take something like liquid mercury, which I'm not even really sure whether mercury is magnetic or not, but I'm sure we can make a liquid that is magnetic and responds to magnets. And then we could send that sphere spinning with the magnet in there, and if the parameters are set right, you would expect something to happen, which is that the stuff would stick as you slowly started spinning, and then as you spun it up faster and faster, it would start to fling off. Not unlike what happens with a paint roller whenever you whip it across the wall and get it spinning really good, and you send paint splattering all over the place. So that would be an experiment that I think could be constructed that would allow you to observe a liquid sticking to the surface of a spinning ball held there by a central force, in this case magnetic.
Just having a good old time reading the chat here, Stan. This is good. I wish you could see it with me at the same time. So somebody wanted to know, this was way back. Again, you guys, your questions and your comments that you want Stan to hear, please put them in caps. How do you feel over there, Stan? You feel like you're on the spot a little bit? Feel a little fire?
I have never had so much fun in my life. I can't believe I get to sit here and talk about all this stuff. This is great.
Oh, that's good. That's good. He can take it, that's for sure. Let's see. Let me go back. They're chatting a little bit, but please put it into caps, folks. So it's just buffering. It's buffering too much. I can't handle it. It's buffering.
That's just to give me time to get a drink of Diet Coke.
Yeah, go for it. Now, originally what I had said when I was promoing the show was every time you said the word flat, we would all drink. Whether it was, whatever you had. That's why I asked earlier, do you have some wine?
That's what's going on. Okay.
So that's, let's see. Okay, I asked you that one. Okay, good. Somebody had wanted to know if you were a Freemason or not.
I am definitely not.
They wanted a yes or no answer, so you did give that without even saying anything. However, can you go into that a little deeper of why you are not, and you answered it that quickly?
I, first off, don't like organizations that hide information from entry-level people about what they're really doing and reveal it gradually as you climb up. That is inherently designed to lead people from one belief system to another. Now, I've never been inside there. I don't know in detail what is taught in there, but from what I have read about it, which could be an error, but I think not, that system leads people who enter believing they are serving Christian principles and exit at the top believing the opposite of it. And it's all secret, and you get so involved in wanting to earn your next stripe and climb in the hierarchy that you actually become susceptible to being led astray systematically, step by step. Now, if I'm wrong, I apologize because I have not climbed the hierarchy and learned the secret information. But what I have learned has horrified me, and so I stay out of that kind of stuff.
So, Spirit of Longhorn, any comments that you make like that, give the reason why. And when you give the reason why, I'll shoot it back at him, and we can all be adults here. And if we can't be adults, I just click you off. And if you want to be smart back to me, that's fine. But I just want to let you know. So when you come back with Stan, I haven't laughed as much at this since I had my legs amputated, then I just want to know why you're saying that. And then we can clear it up. Okay. You says, I like this dude. So it maybe I'm reading it incorrectly. Maybe one of these little bugs. Oh my gosh, they're killing me here. I don't understand what's going on. All right. Can you please recommend some apologetics reading?
Ooh. All right. There's Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell, which is, I think, just came out with a new updated edition taking into account a lot of new archaeological finds that have happened recently. So that would be a good one. Kent Hovland is another guy who, he's called Dr. Dino, I guess, and he likes to talk about dinosaurs and has a dinosaur museum and stuff. And he's a guy that does a lot of that kind of stuff. If you go to the Noah's Ark Museum, there's a guy there that stands up and gives an awesome apologetics thing. And of course, if you go to my steemit.com, that's STEEMIT.com /@Stan blog, you'll find an awful lot of stuff there about cryptocurrencies, but mixed in there is a lot of other libertarian, freedom-oriented stuff, and buried deep inside is some of my best articles having to do with apologetics. Early on, when Steemit just started, you have to scroll back a couple years to some of my earlier articles. I got really involved in the various Steemit groups where people were saying what they did and didn't believe, and I wrote, I don't know, maybe 20 articles or something in there addressing different things like that. And so some of my best efforts at condensing and putting it out there can be found on that blog. I'd go there. And, of course, from there I may have referenced other things. But, yeah, I'd look there.
H.G. Barnes, see you later, dude. That's okay. Got some unsubscribers because either you're not a Freemason or, whatever. And that's the problem I have with some people. Mm-hmm. It's fine to, again, this platform is for people to hear all sides of everything. And we're not in a political war. We're doing that number. We're telling our sides and trying to, I guess some people, they're not trying to educate. They're more saying, you better do this or I'm out of here. And that's okay. I don't want you people around anyway. I don't want to be that, like I'm on walking on glass all the time, right? Is that the proper phrase for that? So,
eggshells.
Yeah.
Eggshells.
Eggshells. That is so awful to do. I want, to respect what other people think as well as, people respect me too. And if they don't and they want me to think everything that they think and they want me to be exactly like them, well, what a boring world, flat or round, this would be for sure. Whatever. All right. So everybody just be nice and kind. This is cool. It's all good. It's all good. Please hit that like button if you're here just to say, hey, we're here. That would be good. Okay. So, somebody was asking about the Air Force logo looking like a demon.
The Air Force logo. I'm not sure if you're talking about the nice little stars with the banner on it that have been painted on airplanes for a long time, or if there's some other logo you're talking about. I know I have seen some patches, if you will, that involve an all-seeing eye and the words total information awareness, which is a really good defense concept and a really scary looking inward at your own citizens concept. And so I can imagine there are those kind of symbols out there. And, of course, a lot of the different patches and so on that we have are designed to look fierce. I did an unmanned air vehicle that had shark's teeth painted on the front of it right behind the propeller. So sometimes we just do that for fun. I'm not sure what exactly logo you're talking about, though.
That's all I got. That was Income Mobile that did that, who has communicated with you a lot. Income Mobile is a true blue rocker in here quite a bit. So you had asked, and I'm going kind of up a little further here and ask, how can a camera that's 4 inches off the snow see a laser that's 7.5 miles away and only 2.4 feet off the snow, when that laser needs to be at more than 9 feet off the snow on a globe? Globe debunked.
Well, of course, the surface of the Earth is not a perfectly smooth sphere, and so there's all kinds of local perturbations and elevation deltas. And so wherever you did that experiment, I very much doubt that the area across which that laser was shining was a perfectly spherical sea level part of the Earth. So I would say that's probably the reason.
Ute says it is not possible to see the laser on a globe.
Not possible to see the laser on a globe. Well, once again, it's certainly possible if the direction you're pointing has a rising elevation. And so wherever you're looking is higher in elevation, further from the center of the Earth. If you're talking about a perfect billiard ball smooth, such that the laser departs tangentially, and you've managed to make it tangentially perfectly, then it's true that as you walk away from a particular location, that beam will be higher and higher off the ground. But any experiment that you try to do along that line is going to be fraught with all the other elevation deltas that are involved and your own lack of precision in terms of how you leveled the laser in the first place.
I'm looking in here.
I'm supposed to take longer in answering these questions, obviously.
No,
so Connie has more time.
it's good. Yeah, I'm reading what everybody's saying. It's amazing. So it's fun. But yeah, sometimes you have long ones. I'm like, come on, I got another one for you. But I just want you to answer them as you know them for sure. That's okay. Just don't know this buffering thing tonight. Get back down to where it was. Those are some further questions. Okay. So some people say that the Earth is flat, but everything else is round. And then some of the flat earthers have been said that everything is flat.
Is that a question?
Just a comment that I heard today, and I thought I'd throw it at you, see what you think.
I remember in geometry class we learned about non-Euclidean geometry, and we saw 3 different versions of whether straight lines, parallel lines intersected or not, whether they intersected once or more than once, and those kind of things. And that created, with those simple differences in assumptions, completely different worldviews. So if you start out with certain assumptions and then build a belief system on top of those assumptions, you can erect a whole lot of different parallel universes in your mind. And so, it's kind of fun to do those kind of thought experiments and see where they lead. That's how a lot of great science fiction comes up, is people postulating these different experiments or different changes in fundamental assumptions and seeing where it leads. That's a delightful thing to spend time doing. And once again, all I'm sharing with you here is, some of the things that make me believe the Earth is round. And once again, the key thing is I rely on that model in order to do my job. And if my beliefs weren't true, then the actions I take and the directions I point my rocket engines and the amount of time I burn them and all those things wouldn't work. And so the only reason that I believe the Earth is round is because my experiments, everything I've ever tried to do, always depends on using that model instead of some other model. That's the only way I get correct results that I can predict and cause to come about.
So those of you, when you write in, it would be neat to know if you're a flat earther or not. I'd be interested in that. I can tell by some of your answers and questions, but I would love to know if you are, so I know for sure. They're commenting as you talk. And it's like,
boy, I sure wish I could join in.
I know it. I'm so sorry. I know you feel that way. I can feel it. The empath in me. And what's bad is by the time they hear that, you and I, they're kind of behind because of the delay here. That's all. So it kind of kills it. Interesting stuff in here. Yeah, you're gonna like some of this stuff, I think. Yeah, that's what I want to know. If you're a flat earther or not, let me know. Vinny says you have slam dunked it once again. Someone said that the moon is flat, and it's just looking at us, it's like.
Yeah, I remember one Christmas Eve when I forget which Apollo it was. It was the one right before Apollo 11, so probably Apollo 10, when the guys didn't get to land. They only were supposed to go and orbit the moon because they worked their way up to this in stages. And so there was this long, pregnant period of time when they went around behind the moon and we couldn't hear from them. And it took, I forget what it was, maybe 20 minutes for them to orbit around behind the moon and come out the other side. And, the sighs of relief when they came around. Because, of course, if they didn't do that right rocket burn back behind the moon to put it into a circular orbit, anything could have happened. They could have gone slingshotting off into someplace they couldn't have got back from. And so everybody sitting on Earth had to sit there and sweat until we heard them coming back on. And then they continued to orbit the moon. And on Christmas Eve, one of them had smuggled a Bible on board, and they read the first few verses from Genesis over there as they described the awe-inspiring act of creation that they were witnessing down there below. And so these guys are going around and disappearing from radio contact and coming back into radio contact, and very clear evidence of what the moon is. And we have pictures of all sides of the moon now from various lunar orbiters. So pretty good evidence that it's a nice sphere. And so, of course, all of that could be faked. And if that's your worldview, there's nothing I can say to change your mind on that.
Jim Panda 2012 is asking, how old is planet Earth and how old is Mars?
Oh, well, I don't know. I've heard 4 or 5 billion years is the scientific evidence. And according to the biblical evidence, about 6,000 years old. And so a lot of people ask me, Stan, how can you possibly believe both of those are true? Well, I told you earlier on, I really don't see any reason why 6,000 years ago God couldn't create a 14 billion year old universe. He's not constrained by that. I can turn on a video game and instantly it jumps to life, and yet all the objects in that video game were engineered months or years ago. And in fact, if they're really simulating trees, then the lifespan of a tree ago. So it's entirely possible for us to create universes that are turned on at a particular time and yet appear to be much older than they are. No reason at all why God, being outside of time, can't say, I need a universe and I'm interested in the part where there are people, so let's build a universe, but I'm not going to waste time watching that early part. I'm going to just cut to the chase and create it so time starts 6,000 years ago. So obviously that's kind of shocking, but it's not much more shocking than any of the other theories that we have that tell us that there can be a huge explosion by accident and that it somehow organizes itself to produce Connie. I mean, come on, what are the chances? So
1-2 is back with us and says, why do people think the world is flat? I actually jumped out of a plane and saw the curvature of the Earth.
Well, I can't explain why people think a lot of things, but I guess I would say it's probably that they see things that seem inconsistent and haven't found an explanation that's satisfactory to them. But certainly people out there, and there are millions who have experienced the kind of information that allows them to conclude it's correct. I've shared my experiences from doing engineering tasks that required me to have a particular model that proved to work for me. But if you don't accept some of that information or the sources of it, you can cut yourself off from the evidence that would cause you to believe something different, and therefore you're going to be stuck with whatever box you've put yourself in.
Anonymous user keeps trying to get a question out, and it's just not happening. Poor thing. I feel bad for him. Let's see here. Had a good one here. So Nandy Bear, again, if you guys can put your comments that you want me to pass on in caps as well as your questions. Nandy Bear says, I've been on the fence for a while. For one, I don't understand how space can be a vacuum. How can a human or any mammal survive in a vacuum?
Well, you can't. That's why we need space suits and space capsules to hold the air to us. Here on the surface of the Earth, gravity is sufficient to pull all those air molecules towards the surface, and we can see the effect of that. It tends to pile up in a compressible way, and the more weight is on it as you get close to the surface of the air, the more dense the atmosphere becomes. And so as we climb a mountain, I'm sure if you've ever gone up to Pikes Peak, 14,000 feet or something, you're going to experience the air getting thin. That's simply because there's less air on top of it pressing it down. As you go down to lower depths, it gets more compressed, but it's simply gravity pulling the air tight against the Earth, and we get to live inside it. But even if you go into the oceans and start diving, you get down more than 30 feet and you start feeling the increase in pressure on you. And that's because that same gravity is compressing the weight of water above you down on you and making the pressure get greater and greater as you go deeper. It's the same effect.
Anonymous user. My question was in regards to why during the years of 69, 72, we made 6 successful manned moon landings, yet with today's tech, leaving Leo is now proving to be a problem.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. You know, we lost so much technology. But I can tell you how it's because of the short attention span of we humans. There was actually, during the early days of the space program and the drama of it all, we would actually stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning to watch a spacewalk in the Gemini program. Or, I think the whole world was watching when the first man landed on the moon. But how fickle we are. Within 6 launches, it became old hat, even for me. I remember that I did not stay up to watch them driving around on the moon for the last couple shots, even though I loved the subject. It
true.
Became old hat. We were so good at it. You know, what we
That's
really
true.
need is events like Apollo 13, where guys almost died up there due to an accident that they had. And so, you know, if we humans don't have drama and constant change, we get bored. And that's why we knew the names of every astronaut for most of those things, but very few people could name the final astronauts that landed on the moon. And how many space shuttle pilots are you able to name these days? So,
when I lived in Orlando, I know you said you had lived there before too. At one point, I was in Winter Park, and we had some sort of I was at a radio station at the time, so we did a lot of the charity events. And, you know, it's just kind of part of it. And there was a charity event for the Special Olympics, and it was at the O-Arena when it was called the O-Arena. I don't know what it is called now. But, you know, if you were in radio, TV, whatever it was, you were considered one of the special celebrities. So I'm in the room with a bunch of other people in this locker area, and we're getting ready to go out to play a volleyball game. And it was going to be the local celebrities and mascots from all the different teams, sports teams across the country, ones I've never seen before. There were just tons of them, tall ones, short ones. And by the way, a little behind the scenes look into these mascots. When you see a tall, skinny one, they're a tall, skinny guy, and that's what they look for. Tall, skinny guys and short, little stump guys. And that's usually the case when they take off those suits. But we were all sitting around wondering who everybody was. You know, a radio person, you're probably not going to know their face and recognize them. You're going to recognize the TV people that do the news. But there's other people around, and you're, oh, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And everybody was throwing out what they did. And, you know, you're a radio person, okay. But the TV person just, you know, trumped you. And then somebody else trumped the TV person. And, you know, it's kind of one of these little kind of things that was going on. And then this guy said, nobody knew who this guy was. And he said, you know, what do you do? I'm an astronaut. He was an astronaut. He was one of the people that went up in the space shuttle. And all of a sudden everybody just stopped what they were doing and looked at him as if it was God, you know, right then and there. And it was great. You know, from then on, he just felt it all. He knew, you know, you could tell from his reaction that in the past, as soon as he says that, bam, that's it. Everybody goes toward him. They didn't care who else was there. And that was pretty interesting. That was fun. I mean, how many people can you say did that? And like you said, we'd go and watch the shuttle go up all the time in the, you know, and being able to get into the media area. At first you thought that was cool, and you'd bring your friends. Hey, you get in the media area. And at one point you thought, no, this is boring. I want to go where the people are that are partying and, you know, watching it from their little area where they're doing some little tailgating. And that was a whole lot more fun and just but it did get old at one point. Then you started watching from home. You didn't drive all the way up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I get you. And it's too bad, but that shows you that the human race is like, let's keep going. Come on, break through that barrier, break through that barrier, break through that barrier. And how do you see, with Trump, how do you see all this happening with space moving forward? Do you see more opportunities coming? And with Elon and, even, Bigelow?
Yeah, I think right now the exciting thing is it being moved off from a government-sponsored project to private industry. You get a lot more unpredictable things there, and the whole idea of rockets coming back and landing tail first is something from science fiction.
That's cool.
You know,
there's no question.
And so I love it. And the idea of launching a Tesla into space. I mean, that's the kind of audacity you can only get from private industry, right?
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
I'm glad to see that, and that'll be good.
That's really cool. John Doherty, I think that Doherty. I'm not ignoring your bitter questions. I don't see them. Please put them in caps. I did get that you said that, and somebody else has been talking about how they're sending stuff and it's not showing up. It just disappears. I don't know why that is. Is YouTube becoming Facebook, where Facebook just says, I'm turning off whatever you have to say? That's terrible. What's been going on in the news with Facebook. It's absolutely terrible. And that's why I like Steemit and decentralized types of platforms. And we can get back into the BitShares at that point. There we go. Jonathan, let's see. Jonathan, rockets don't even work in space. What the?
Well, I assure you they do.
They've been working. Woof, woof. Okay. I'm just getting half of their stuff here. 444, the truth. Can you just ask the question? Well, when they're all in caps, it makes it a whole lot easier. And there's a lot of conversation going on. So 44 truth, if you can, that would be very helpful if you could retype them in caps like that, and then it would really help me out. Will Stan be applying to be part of the Space Army?
Haven't heard of a Space Army. I did my time, though, 6 years in the Air Force and serving as a civilian overseas with the Marines. So, I'm not planning to join any more armies at this time.
An army? Would you? I know a friend of mine's a Marine or was a Marine years back, and we kind of kid around with each other where I'll introduce him as an Army. He was in the Army. He's like, oh, no, I'm a Marine. So, and Marines, I know, they're very proud to be a Marine. But I'm surprised as Air Force, you might say, hey, Air Force. None of that, though, is coming from you.
Oh, we have a lot of fun poking fun at each other,
Okay.
The different services, yeah.
Okay. How can rockets use thrust in a vacuum?
It's not dependent upon the presence of air. Usually the types of fuels that we use have their own oxidizers either built in the case of solid rockets, or in the case of liquid fuel, two different tanks, one holding the fuel and one holding the oxidizer. Those are mixed at the very last instant, and then sometimes they automatically combust when they contact each other, or in other cases they are ignited. But whatever the case is, the only thing that matters is once you've got fuel and oxygen together, you're going to get release of energy, which you can then shape with a nozzle in a way that generates thrust. And, of course, it doesn't always require burning. There are other things. You could actually have a very small amount of thrust by just having a particle accelerator that throws electrons overboard or other particles that over time accumulates to get you a very low continuous thrust. But it has nothing to do with taking oxygen out of the vacuum. You carry your own oxygen with you.
Sounds good. So apparently Trump is talking about a space army. Bring it on.
Okay. I'm not sure who they're going to fight, but okay.
Well, a lot of us here on Blue Rock Talk can tell you some people that they might fight. Reagan was talking about that a long time ago. Remember any of that during the Cold War there? With Reagan?
I remember Reagan very well. I don't remember.
Star Wars aiming it out.
Oh, Star Wars.
Star Wars pointed out instead of in. Why would you point something out instead of in? And he was talking about we should all be humans, all become together as one as humans.
I think the time to build a planetary defense system is before we need it. So, if we had the resources to afford it, then that might be prudent. But I haven't seen a lot of your shows, so I probably don't know about everything that's out there.
Oh, okay, all right. Proprietors saying that's not true. Releasing energy in a vacuum would not create thrust.
Well, I'm sorry, but it does.
Why? Oh.
Okay, let me give you a physics lesson.
Okay. Throw it in. That would be good.
One of the laws of motion is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And the classic thing we teach in high school is if you're standing in a boat and you pick up a bowling ball and you throw it in one direction, you're going to see the boat move in the other direction. And that's all you're doing with a rocket engine is throwing mass at high velocity in one direction, and the opposite reaction is that your vehicle moves in the other direction. So that's how we get thrust, is by throwing mass in one direction, causing us to move in the other.
Right. I don't want to say some of these questions. Jeff Higgs, why did they blow up the Challenger?
Yeah.
Now, I just don't see that side myself. I don't see that as a conspiracy on that one. But we all think different things here. That's what it's all about. So.
Well, the sad thing is that when our authorities behave badly and reduce the trust that we have in them, we start to get suspicious about everything. And the fact that everybody's suspicious about something probably draws back fundamentally to bad behavior on the part of our highest authorities.
Ryan Stock, I'm sorry. We do have love for your question. I'm just trying to get to them all here. They keep flopping up. So they're saying, and I believe too, what you're answering, just doesn't work in space, cannot push off of air.
You don't push off. It just is, as I've said right now, thrust is not caused by pushing against something. It's caused by throwing mass away. And the force that you exert to shove against the mass that you're throwing away, not air out in space, but the mass that you carried with you and you threw away with your rocket engine is what you're pushing against in order to get the opposite effect of making you move.
Flat earthers saying there is no atmosphere to push off of. Answer them, please. Yeah, that's what you just taught. That's what you just said just then.
Yeah. You carry what you're pushing against with you, and you push against it as you throw it away.
Okay. Can you explain waters above the firmament?
No, I'm very fascinated by that. That's a very mysterious passage in the Bible.
Flat earthers like that.
Yeah.
And I love flat earthers, by the way. So flat earthers, give me a break. I'm doing this show for you, man. Be cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess one of the first things that I've always wondered about when I tried to analyze that, and I don't have a good answer, is what is the firmament, right? Certainly if you define the firmament as, the atmosphere below the clouds and the waters above the firmament are coming out of the clouds, then, I could maybe make that explanation. It's a poetic way of describing sources of water, either above or below. I think they've recently discovered that there are layers of water below the surface of the earth at various depths that can be tapped. Aquifers of different types. And so it may well be, and who knows, because it could have been brought about by a supernatural reason or something as simple as an asteroid smashing into the Pacific Ocean and basically causing the Earth to temporarily rupture like a grape and squirt lots of waters from the deep, so to speak, into the atmosphere and causing a lot of additional moisture in the atmosphere to start coming out, maybe even blowing away some of that atmosphere, causing the atmospheric density to drop to the point where moisture in the air precipitates out. I can construct lots of possible ways that might have happened, but the fact of the matter is we're not told exactly what brought that about.
Okay, well, they're going back to the other about the thrust area. No, you'd have to push out more mass than you're moving. And what you said prior was simply not true.
Well, it's certainly true that in order to get an acceleration in one direction, F, the force times the mass, if I have a little bit of mass that I'm throwing away, I got to throw it away hard. And if I throw it away with sufficient force, then I can cause a smaller acceleration of a bigger mass in the other direction. And that's why when I throw a bowling ball, when I'm standing in a rowboat, I'm throwing a relatively smaller mass than myself, and I'm throwing it away at high speed, and that causes the bigger mass of my boat to move away at a lower speed. But it all balances out in terms of the total acceleration I'm generating in one direction, divided by the mass I'm putting in that direction equals the equal and opposite force. That's what F equal ma is all about. And so I get an equal and opposite force, and I can therefore throw a lot of little tiny mass particles away very fast and have that turn into a smaller acceleration of bigger mass in the other direction.
So you throws back, that's like lifting someone up by their collar, and while floating, they lift you up, and you can both float up.
No, you can do the experiment yourself. Stand on roller skates and throw baseballs. Carry a bag of baseballs with you and pick one up and throw them and just keep throwing them like that. And guess what? You're going to find yourself moving in the opposite direction, and you aren't pushing on the air. You're pushing on the baseball. And as you accelerate that baseball, you cause yourself to move in the opposite direction. This is simple high school physics. People do those experiments all the time. Did you not take high school physics?
A bowling ball simply won't do anything you want, won't sustain, won't propel much.
No, it shows the principle. And now what we do is say, okay, I just moved it from a bowling ball down to a baseball. Now move it down to gases, and let me take those gases and accelerate them to supersonic speeds. And so I'm throwing away a lot less mass, but I'm throwing it a lot harder coming out of there. And I multiply those together, and I get a certain amount of force we call thrust. And that thrust is then applied to the mass of the spaceship and gives me an acceleration in the other direction with that simple equation.
Proprietor is leaving now, saying goodbye. He's heard this almost for 4 years now. So before you go, if you're still there, tell the other side. Give the other side, instead of telling him he's wrong. Give the other side and the reason why. Because Stan is totally giving a side and a reason, and you can do the same thing. So throw that back, one of you guys that are going against what he's saying, so I can throw it back at him. All right? I'm on all sides here. I'm not. So give me what, because Stan is definitely giving an answer and reasons. So you guys do the same thing, and I'll throw that out to him. So Jonathan, okay, so what is a hair's width of propulsion going to do for your boat? Not enough.
Well, it's just something that I'm using as an example to show you the physical principle. Now, is that going to make... Well, okay, I'll give you an idea. Put a motorboat. Put that motor on there and stick it down into the water and spin that propeller. And what you are doing is pushing away the water and generating thrust that does propel your motorboat. So there's a device someone's invented that is causing water that it's collecting from surroundings. But you could imagine that a can of compressed air, a tank of compressed air underwater could make a ski jet until you exhausted the amount of air you're shooting out of there. So there are lots of ways to do it. And yeah, just the fact that a particular example that allows a person to get a gut feel for what the physical principles are doesn't produce continuous thrust, doesn't change the fact of physics that pushing mass away from you causes you to move in the other direction. And now, to make spaceships, we just need to devise ways to throw a lot of mass away at a very high velocity, and that's how we get our thrust.
Okay, proprietor has come back, gosh, and said that he already did give you the information that, or I was saying give a reason. And it goes back to, once again, in order for thrust to work, you have to have something to push off of.
And that's simply not true. Okay, simply not true. Or if we're going to define it that way, I'm pushing off of the bowling ball, the baseball, the gas stream. Okay, the fact is that if I carry it with me and throw it away, I'm pushing off of that mass as I throw it away. And I don't have to push off of stuff that's in my environment to get that effect. That's how equal and opposite, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, is a fundamental principle of physics. That's the way mass works.
He says
and you can,
go ahead.
Well, you can do lab experiments in physics class in high school to prove that to yourself as much as you like.
He said there are videos you can watch that prove thrust won't work in a vacuum.
Well, I've never seen such a video, and I have certainly done enough examples that prove thrust does work in a vacuum. And that's how we do everything we do. And all those trajectories I show you that are designed to keep a satellite most of the time over Japan or whatever, all the examples I gave you are examples of that working, because in order to get those orbital shapes, we had to generate thrust in a vacuum.
And that's where he's saying he would like to see an example of this in a vacuum.
Well, you can do that experiment in a vacuum. It wouldn't be very hard. Let's imagine a vacuum chamber. You can construct one. There are those out there. Let's set a table in there and put a little soapbox derby car in there, and let's stick a CO2 cartridge on that car, and let's punch a hole in the thing and step back and watch what happens to the car. Okay, I'm in a vacuum, and I'm having that car go scooting across the table, being propelled by that CO2 cartridge, just expelling mass in the other direction.
He's going to drop us a link so that he can send you some of that information. I know back a little bit further, somebody had another question. How you doing over there, Stan? You like this?
Well,
this is tough,
amazing.
isn't it?
I've never had so much fun in my life.
Really? Okay.
Great, yeah.
I'm over here going, be nice,
well,
be nice. Come on, be nice. I should just, I always want everybody to be nice. If it is fake, please prove it is fake. So people, that's where they're talking amongst each other here.
Yeah. I've showed you my proof. If you've got proof to the contrary, then that'd be good, but it would have to be pretty amazing proof to offset the thousands, tens of thousands of objects that have been sent into space and around space that have involved using simple rocket science. It's a mastered art. And so I don't know what to say in terms of how much evidence you'd have to produce in order to prove that that wasn't true.
And one of the things that I would like, what is that? Jim, we laugh at how horrified by it you get when people are simply asking questions that should have answers. Is the edge of chaos necessary for successful rocket launches?
I don't know what edge of chaos means.
That's Income Mobile. Jonathan, you can't have a pressure system next to a vacuum. Explain.
Well, yes, you can. I mean, if I take a canister of compressed air and I take it out into space, what I've got is a pressure system next to a vacuum separated by something that's containing it. If I punch a tiny little hole in it, then the gas will escape from the high pressure to the low pressure area, and it will generate thrust. And if I shape the nozzle just right, I can optimize that.
Ryan, do we know how gravity works at the quantum level? Thanks for asking that again, Ryan, so I could see it.
No, I don't. Maybe somebody does.
Ryan, do you know? That's what would be good. I'd like to have, I would like for the flat earthers out there to pick the person that they would like to talk with Stan. Stan, would you be up for that, to talk to who their representative would be?
That would probably make a more interesting show.
Absolutely.
Because, we could interact back and forth very quickly. So, yeah, if you've got somebody who is willing to make the case, I'm all ears to hear it, and we'll, see if we can share some information.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I know Mark Sargent. That's who I interviewed before. So if you guys have someone that you think would be good to go up against Stan, that, is not some screamer yeller, I don't want that. I really want us to learn. I want us to really come to some answers on this. So if there's somebody that you think would represent you the most, maybe it's you that you think would be the best person. That would be great. I would really like that. We've got Rob Skiba as a name. And that, I think that would be fantastic to do. Yeah, a whole lot quicker. Get the questions from both sides spitting it out, because usually what happens is, it tends to, the flat earthers take over. That's fine. I like you both. But you don't hear much from the others. And I think it's because the others, even though they're kind of getting, whipped, I feel, from some of the words, I think not only do they feel that, but I think they're actually sitting there listening to it too. I mean, there's some people that are saying it the other way, but congruesum. There's no quantum theory of gravity as of yet.
Okay.
Yeah, he said he didn't know the answer, so.
Yeah, I don't claim to know all science. It's gotten away from me.
Well, I think
when I was a kid, it was possible to know most of all this stuff, but it's been growing by leaps and bounds. So,
gotcha.
I've been busy doing digital currencies lately.
You have. I think 444 the truth needs to say what it is that he knows, because that would be better than saying what you just wrote. Connie, please ask why we haven't seen yet Australians walking upside down.
Actually, that's an interesting point. Oh, thank you. I had a tremendous experience in the capital city of Canberra, down there in Australia. And I walked out at night, and it was a nice, clear night. And there were city lights, but I could still see the stars. And I looked up at Orion, one of my favorite constellations. Oh, yeah. And Orion was upside down. And it was then I realized I was hanging off the bottom of the planet. Thank you. Boy, how could I have left that story? Yes. In Australia, Orion and all the other constellations are upside down. And the only way that can be is if you're really upside down, because that's just the stars are out there. And when you're standing on the surface of the planet upside down, those constellations look upside down. Bingo. Yes.
One of the guy that I did have on Coast to Coast, as well as here on Blue Rock Talk, and where I got any little logo that I have, people have said that he is looking for somebody just like you. Now, before I went on the show, I did text Mark to say that I was doing that, and if he wanted to stop in, he was welcome to do it. Now, it doesn't mean that he got the text or anything like that, but I do have contact with him, and they said that he was looking for somebody just like you to do this with. Pat Konchak has said quantum theory and gravity are opposites like yin and yang. And Jonathan comes back. So how can the atmosphere exit next to a vacuum? You can't have a pressure system next to a vacuum. Thanks.
Well, it thins out as you go up, and as you get higher and higher, you actually get to the point where gases are escaping. By random motion, they sort of float off, and so it's a gradual continuum of thinning out atmosphere. And so at any given point in the atmosphere, the difference in pressure between an inch above it and an inch below it is very minuscule. It's only an accumulative over a long period range that the pressure goes from 15 pounds per square inch at the sea level up to 0 when you get 100 miles up. So it's a continuum, and there's no single point where you've got pressure against vacuum. It's a gradual transition.
Have you heard of the physicist who says he found intelligent computer code in the fabric of space-time?
Vaguely I remember hearing something about that. I'm not sure exactly. I couldn't repeat it. Just sounds vaguely familiar.
Mm-hmm. I think we had somebody on Coast to Coast recently that was talking about the same thing. No 4-4 truth. Just asking you to be kind when you're in here, that's all. Just be kind. Don't tell people they don't know what they're talking about just because they don't believe in what you believe. It's okay for people to have differences of opinions. Thank goodness we're in a country where we can do that. But it's starting to change on us though, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure you can always do that.
I know.
I'm afraid our country has been driven into two camps that are at war, and we're not communicating anymore. It's sad.
Some of these. Stan, you don't know a lot, do you? And 4-4 Truth doesn't even know how to spell no. So 4-4 Truth, any more talk like that? I don't care. I don't want people like you here.
Yeah.
Here's to learn. It's interesting. If you're going to be mean and nasty, then you got to go. That's it.
You've reminded me of in high school, I was on a Teener League baseball team. And there was one particularly loud member of my team who actually said to me, "Ain't you got no learning?"
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
If it didn't buffer so much, okay. And 4-4 Truth, boom, out of here. All right. Thank you. I love that you guys are asking questions. I love that you are really wanting to know from somebody that has a whole different perspective. And look at Stan's patience and kindness. And if we can all do that on all sites, that would be awesome. That's what's so nice. So we appreciate those of you that are doing that. And John's being just great here, even though he's totally on the opposite side here, being very kind and doing everything properly here. I think I may have asked that question already that he had asked here. So, yeah, a lot of people talking about Neil deGrasse. Who wants to communicate with leftist liberal? I won't go into that one. That's Income Mobile always can cut the, if there's any thickness out there, brings it back to life there. Okay, please mention the distance. Amber Punk, I'm not sure what you're asking about. There's no container through Amber. Sorry, won't work. I'm not sure what that was about. So forgive me there, Stan. I'm going to look over here. It's a little easier to look. You can see the other side of me. Stan, I tell you, this is great. You are, you're rocking and rolling over there. So I think Ryan Stock is saying, "I love you guys." Why? And Jonathan's going, "Why would a vacuum care about gravity anyway?"
Well, I don't think vacuums care about anything.
I think everybody here is really good people, and I think it would be even more fun if we could all sit around in some, like a library type kind of place with really comfortable chairs and a fire going and dark lights and a little port going on, and we all just, figure it out, just until we figure it out. Nobody can leave until then. I think that would be absolutely fun. These are the documentaries that should occur. But that's basically what we're doing here. So as everybody else talks amongst themselves, I know, Stan, that it's 12:30. You've been with us for 2.5 hours there. I know we started a little bit late, but you've done a wonderful job. There's more, of course, questions in there and comments. And you don't see all the stuff. You'll see them later. I always get like, no, don't talk like that. Be nice. But I appreciate your time for this. And I think if everybody's cool with Mark Sargent, I think, I do have his number and everything, and he's been very kind to me. I really like talking to Mark about flat Earth because he comes across very kind as well. And he's got an answer for everything you'll say, Stan. He's got an answer. Just like you'll have an answer for everything he says. I think it would be fantastic.
All right. That sounds like fun.
Okay. Maybe, let me check here. Let me check my schedule for next week. So maybe we can do that on next Thursday, a week from tonight. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll have to look at my schedule, but if it's possible, we could.
It's the 19th. You don't leave for your Greek tour, right? You're going to Greece, is that right?
Yeah, I just have to look and see what the schedule looks like as I get into next week, and if I can, I will.
You're going to be there, yeah. WWE. I think Mark is really cool, and I think he'll just be just as kind back. He'll be tough. He's going to have answers, and I didn't know if you guys, as flat earthers, thought Mark was definitely a good person as a front for you guys. Because I don't know enough about the flat earth, but I learned so much with him. Spirit of Longhorn, or of Longthorn. We still take care of you and give you what you're asking for, and you still are cocky on the way out. And that's what I mean about some of the people in flat earth. Can't please them sometimes. Those of you that we can please, come back and be a part of the show and see if we can't learn a little bit more. It's not about trying to convince somebody of what the answer is. It's, just showing them and letting them make up their own minds what they want to think. And, Stan, we appreciate all the stuff you've given. Any more last words on this?
No, thank you, Connie. It was good to go back and refresh all those synapses that I haven't used since the 1980s. So,
well, that's for sure. You did that tonight. I tell you what, I'm going to find the area where some bug is just having babies that are flying at me constantly. The whole time we've been here, they've been flying at me. I'm like, deflecting these little critters. I don't know what it is. Maybe little Penny made a little boo-boo somewhere and they're coming alive from that. Would that be the case? No answers, Mr. Scientific Guy?
No, a man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to run. It's like, no, don't anybody get on my nerves. I've got little bugs all over me. Well, Stan, I do appreciate that. That is, we are here on Friday. It's Friday now, but it's Thursday. So next time we'll talk to you, unless you have some sort of breaking news for us, is in the BitShares world, and anything with the old blockchain or anything happening. We will talk to you Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern with a Stan's Bible lecture, correct?
Yep. I'll be there, Lord willing.
All right. And those of you out there, it ain't your daddy's Bible class. That's what I like to say. It is definitely not that. It's a college level course, and I think that you will enjoy that. So, Stanorama, boom. We'll see you later. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Okay. That was Stan Larimer, known for the Godfather of BitShares, but also rocket scientist. Really cool. That's what I loved about when I lived in Winter Park, which is Orlando, Florida, a little area of Orlando, was meeting being so close to Cape Canaveral, meeting so many people that were truly rocket scientists. They were really, truly rocket scientists, because that was always the big joke. What are you, a rocket scientist? So that was really cool. So thanks for you guys, too, being a part of the conversation. Sorry, I'm going to be throwing some of you guys out. Hey, that's just the way it is. I want it to be civil. I can turn on the news if I want to get that kind of talk, and I certainly don't want that here, and I don't want to push that out. So I will set examples. Rawr, drain the swamp on the Blue Rock Talk. So everybody, thanks again for showing up. Hey, this is Blue Rock Talk, Earth's most interesting conversations, people, places, and things. Stan Larimer for you right there. On Coast to Coast this Saturday night, I'll be on. I hope that you guys join me there for sure. We're going to be talking about the Titanic. There's somebody out there that says, no, that's the Olympic. That's the Olympic. They were trying to get some money. And that's very interesting from some of the other things I've read about ships and white Starliners. And also we're going to be talking about tattooed rocks that may be giving us scenes and stories from another species or extraterrestrials trying to give us a history of who we are and what is going on and who we are to the universe. Very interesting. I think you might find that also here on Blue Rock Talk. Stan's Bible class, 1 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. And then we're going to do it all over again. But next week, I'm going to give it a shot to get a hold of Mark Sargent to see if he will be on for this same time next week here on Blue Rock Talk. We'll have them, boom, boom, battling it out together there. And I'm sure they'll do it in a civil way where we can learn. I mean, that's the deal, right? You guys want us over on your side or the other ones want us over on your side. I'm right in the middle and I want to bring it to you. So thank you for listening and being a part of Blue Rock Talk. My name is Connie Willis and I really appreciate those of you here to hit that like button and also to subscribe if you haven't already. Take care until next time.